So good morning and good evening, everyone, and welcome to VizConnect. First of all, I just want to say to everyone, I hope everyone is doing great and healthy. And let's go ahead and start today's session. So first, what is VizConnect, right? So VizConnect is all about connecting you with the art of data visualization and storytelling. So it started in May last year. So it goes back to the history. I was a customer before joining Tableau, and currently, I'm a customer success manager with Tableau. And when I joined Tableau, the problem was that I had so many customers and there was no channel to go ahead to reach out to them, right? So that's when I went ahead and founded VizConnect. So far, we have hosted close to 23 sessions. We had close to 28 speakers. We have covered close to 4,000 attendees. We have a great YouTube channel. So all the content which is presented on VizConnect goes to our YouTube channel. I will go ahead and send you the link for that. We also have a LinkedIn group in which you can go ahead and connect to the like-minded people. Some great content is waiting for you over there. So this has been all possible with respect to our amazing community. I think they has been so kind just to come and present and reach out to our community in APAC and India region. So this is the VizConnect channel. We have all the videos, all the amazing content waiting for you. So I will go ahead and advise you, just subscribe to it. We have some amazing content waiting for you. The next is a VizConnect channel on a VizConnect group on LinkedIn. Go ahead, subscribe to it. Some great content waiting for you over there. Let's come to today's speaker. Her name is Kate Brown. She is a history major who fell into analytics. Currently, she is a business intelligence manager at Comcast. 5 years experience with Tableau Desktop, 2 year experience with Tableau Prep. And the interesting thing is that she was in the beta testing for Mastro 2, which was the project before Tableau Prep was launched. About her life, she is obsessed about gold. She loves traveling, reading, and thinking about gold. She lives in Quincy, Massachusetts, with her husband and Sherpa, as you can see over here. And the fun fact about Kate is that she has traveled into Ennismore Island. It's one of the Aran Islands in Galway Bay. And we have another speaker today. Her name is Tanu. She's a part of Tableau team. She is a solutions engineer at Tableau in a Singapore office. The fun fact about her is that other than Tableau Prep, her biggest passion is books, and thanks to the amount of time work from home has given her, she has done with 6 books this year. With that, over to Tanu.
Great, thank you, Sagar. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So
just one thing before you Tanu start, for everyone on the call, if you have any questions, just go ahead. We have a Q&A tab. Just write your question over there, and we are happy to take it at the end of session by Kate and Tanu. Yeah, thank you.
So I just wanted to set a bit of an agenda. Thank you, Sagar, and welcome everyone. We're going to basically first, I'll just start by giving a short introduction into Tableau Prep, and then hand it over to Kate. She'll be going over some really interesting use cases of using Prep at her work, which is going to be really exciting. And then we'll go over a challenge that she solved using Tableau Prep. And finally, do stay on till the end, where I'll be going back over how you can stay engaged with your prep journey and your data preparation journey. So just a bit on what is Tableau Prep. So before I get into this, I believe we have a short poll in the chat. I just wanted to understand where the group's at and if you've ever really used Prep or heard of Prep before. So I think that's going to be up, if I'm not wrong.
Sorry, Tanu, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. If you can continue without the poll for now, and
okay,
we can get it up.
Okay, sure. So I will keep my curiosity paused for a bit, but we'll continue. So essentially, I am assuming most of you probably associate Tableau with visualization and analytics layer. The visualizations that a lot of the other VizConnect speakers have discussed and shared, and That is very core to Tableau. But in addition to that, we realized that our customers had a real challenge when it came to data preparation. In fact, through an article that was written by Harvard Business Review, we've learned that 80% of an analyst's time is spent on cleaning and discovering data. And I think the development team realized that if you really wanted to make analytics more approachable, data preparation was where we needed to spend more time. And that's exactly where Tableau Prep came up. And it's basically the answer to self-service data management and is part of that Tableau Creator license offering. So what we realized, and what I've actually put together as a few principles of what Tableau Prep is grounded on, is that it's super intuitive. So a lot of the solutions are that there's a little bit of a learning curve, and Prep tries to minimize that to a very large degree. What I really, really love about it is that there's a lot of visibility. One of the challenges that come with data preparation is really knowing, oh, our poll is back. Okay, go ahead and fill in whether you've used Prep before, and I'll go back over what were the things that I kind of liked about it. So I think you just need to give in the option. I obviously have a very predictable one. And while you do the polling, I will continue with a few things. So yeah, the first thing was that there's that visibility, there's a flexibility, because a lot of times you have things that you want to implement and you want to test it out, but you're too scared if that will change the whole data set that you've created. And the ability to iterate and test out those changes was something that I loved. And of course, the idea that I didn't have to manually go through each row and there was smarter things to help me out, which is something, again, you will see as Kate goes through the product, was something I found really interesting. And the fact that once you're done with everything and you want to share this, there's a very trackable, documented change. And of course, these are all concepts right now, but when you see Tableau Prep, these are the few groundings that I thought the product's being built on. And it's essentially a more visual, direct, and smart way to get your data ready. So with that background and a bit of context, and while we wait for the poll to come up, I will hand it over to Kate now so she can take you through how she's been using this in her organization.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to bring over just a quick slide I put together. I know I get a fair amount of questions about how do I use Prep? How would I use it? What kind of things can I do with it? Why should I use it? So what I did was just outline 3 examples of how I use it on a day-to-day basis. So I am comfortable writing SQL. My primary data source is an Oracle database, but I also use Microsoft SQL Server and Teradata as well. And obviously, like most of us, I use a lot of Excel and CSV files. So one example of something that I had to build was a Tableau dashboard that had employee schedules highlighted and color-coded by whatever tasks they were doing for that day. And what I needed to show was 0 for days that either they didn't have anything scheduled or they weren't working. So data densification is a big reason that I use Prep. It allows me easily to combine Oracle and the CSV file, and then I can go through and group and add values to it. So if I don't have a record for someone, I can create that. So I can say, here are all my employees, here are all the dates that I want to look at. So I'm joining those together. And then if I don't have an activity record, I can easily populate 0 for the hours, and I could easily populate free as the time category for that day. So I'm cleaning, I'm grouping, and I'm summarizing that, and I output that to drive our Tableau dashboard. Another example that I walked through, if you were on our Tableau virtual tug for Prep a couple of weeks ago, I walked through this example where I have an employee hierarchy where my immediate manager is my first level manager, and I was asked to reverse that. So the top leader in the company was actually the first manager, and my direct manager would be the last one. So obviously with an employee hierarchy, you've got People have different number of managers in their scheme. So how do you do that? So I walk through how to do that in prep, and you can watch that video. And again, I cleaned, I pivoted, I joined, I unioned and that. So I was using pretty much all of the capabilities of prep to get that one done. And I use that output in a number of different things that I do, some of which does not end up in Tableau desktop or in a visualization. So that is another way that I use it, is really combine data sources, and maybe I'm just kicking it out to Excel for a purpose, or I'm creating it as a data source to use in other work that I'm doing. And then another example is activity reports. So oftentimes I need to find out who has or hasn't done something. So again, I'm densifying the data in prep, and then it allows me to easily see, create a visualization that will show what % have or haven't done this by different various levels. So it may be by a management hierarchy, it may be geographical, and I can look at it at the employee level. So we create a lot of dashboards to monitor that and also show who needs to still do an activity. So those are just a couple of examples of how you can use it, or how I use it day to day. And then what we thought for today, what we could do is walk through prepping data. So if anyone is already using Tableau Prep, hopefully you're familiar with prepping data. This is a project that Carl Alchin and Jenny Martin, Jonathan Allenby and Tom Prowse have. And every week they're going to put out a challenge to the community. It started back in 2019. So there's a great number of challenges out there. And I thought this one would be a great example because you're not writing any calculated fields. So what this is really going to show you is the power of the built-in tools in prep. So all we're really going to do is point and click, and we're also going to rename a couple of things. So we'll do a little bit of typing. And the way the prepping data works is you're going to see a challenge out here with a little summary, and then you're going to see what the requirements are down here. And so what I usually do when I have this is, I'm a big notebook person. I fully haven't embraced fully digital yet. So I write down and kind of come up with my strategy with pen and paper on how I'm going to approach each challenge. But for what I did for today was I kind of summarized what our steps are here and just threw them in Notepad. So what we need to do for this example is we need to aggregate sales volume and values by week. And then we need to join in profit information to find out where our value and volume sales exceeded the min profit value and volume. And then we're also going to need to join in some budget information to see where value or volume missed the budgeted number. And we're going to be working with an Excel file. What I love about this too is it gives you some outputs here you're going to see, and you're going to see what it should look like. So if you click on this and make it a little bit bigger, it gives you right here, one of the outputs. So it helps you when you're building it and you're getting familiar with it to go, do a little sanity check. Is what I'm doing right? Am I getting these numbers? And sometimes, depending upon how complicated it may be, you may have to look down at the hints and tips here. So to try and make it as easy for you as possible to get to the solution. Not all of the challenges are super easy, but I think they're great. And then about a week after the challenge is posted, there'll be a solution posted out there. So I am going to jump into prep. And I've already created my connection here to the Excel file, so I already downloaded it. Over here in your blue pane is going to be your connections, and the way that you would connect to it is by hitting this plus symbol. Anytime you see a plus symbol in prep, that's where you're going to click to do anything. So here you're going to see these are all the connection types you have. So I just picked Excel and went out and picked my Excel file. Now, depending upon what you're using, you've got a lot of different options for connection types, different databases, and you also have a JDBC and ODBC down here. And you can connect multiple data types. So I do have a flow where I'm using a CSV file, a Teradata connection, and an Oracle connection. So you can have multiple connection types. So we're going to work with Excel, and the first thing that we need to do, if I jump back over here, is we need to aggregate our sales volume and value by the type and the week. So what I've got here is an Excel file that's got multiple tabs. So I'm going to guess that this week 1 is going to have the values that I want. So I'm going to click on week 1, and I'm going to drag it out here to my pane. And when you add a connection into your pane here, you're going to get your input screen. And this is going to give you the option here of if we want to connect multiple files, if you have a data sample, if you're going to sample your data automatically, it defaults to a default sample amount. I'm not going to get too much into sampling today, but we can get back into that another time. If I make any changes, they would be tracked here. And this is just going to give you a preview of the fields, the field type, and then a quick sample, just a couple of values that are in that column. Now we're going to work with a multiple file type today. So I know I have multiple tabs. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this wildcard union. Now this is, I love the wildcard union. If you have files that are coming in and every month they say January sales, February sales, March sales, what you can do is you can do wildcard for files, or you can do wildcard for sheets. So if we were going to do it for a file, we would use up here. Today we're going to bring in multiple sheets, so we're going to come down to this section. So we're going to include multiple sheets, and then I can put in a matching pattern. So it's going to do a wildcard search. So all of my tabs start with week. So what I can do is type week and then the asterisk. And then if I hit enter, it's going to show me these are the sheets that we're going to include. And then we just hit apply. And now what you're going to see up here, which you may not have noticed, is now we've got a little plus symbol up here. And that indicates that we've got these all union together. So like I said earlier in the connections, anytime you want to do something in prep, you want to click on this little plus symbol. So we're going to click a plus symbol, and we're going to add a clean step. My personal preference is whenever I'm starting to work with anything in prep, I always want to look at a clean step because that's going to show me my data. And so now up here is where our flow is. And then this is going to give us the columns in our data set and the values. And what's great about, what I love about this is the histograms. So I can hover over and I can see, 26% of my rows have a null value in my sales value column. What's up with that? Now what I can do is click on this, and what that's going to do is it's going to highlight where those values are coming from. So I can easily see that weeks 7 and 8 over here are both in blue. So they do not have a field called sales volume in week 7 or 8. So whoever was doing this must have renamed that column on those tabs. Prep makes this super easy. What we can do is combine this. So if I come over here to the volume, I can see over here volume is null. So what I want to do is combine my volume with my sales volume. So if I click on the column, hold down my mouse, I can just bring it over here, and you'll get a little pop-up that says drop to merge fields. Now when I release that, it's going to merge them. So it's now combined those. I don't have to do a calculated field. I can just drop and merge. Where this also comes in handy is if you do unions, your column names, you don't have to have the same number of columns to do a union, and your column names can be different, which I love because there are times that you want to union things and they're not the same name. So prep will bring them together, and then you can just combine the columns that you want to be the same. All right, so we've got that cleaned up. And now the other thing I know that I need to do is I need to aggregate this at a week level. So luckily for us, right here, we can see that our tab names were week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to double click into table names, and I'm just going to replace table names with week. And now I've I've changed that name and it is now called week. Now over in your changes panel here, I can see I've got 3 changes made. So if you're interested to see what's going on, you can always open this up and it's going to show you where your changes are. So this is really handy to get kind of a track of everything that you've done, especially if you've inherited a flow from someone. You can come over here and see exactly what's happening. I'm going to close that for now, and I'm going to do a couple other changes with this. So I don't want this to say week 1, 2, 3. I just want it to have the week number. So what I can do is this little 3-dot menu is super powerful. And when you see more options, click on this, and we are going to do some cleaning. So when I open up my clean, I've got some great options in here. So I can make everything upper or lowercase. I can remove letters. I can remove numbers or punctuations and get rid of spaces. So for this, I'm going to click on the remove letters. And you can see now I'm getting closer to what I need, but I still have that space between them. So I'm just going to come back, go over to clean, and I'm going to remove all spaces. And now I actually want that to be a number field. I don't want it to be a text field. And I know it's text because if I hover over it up here, it's got the ABC and it tells me it's a string. Now, if I click on this, I get another menu, and easily I can change this to a number. So we're going to change it to a whole number. And now I have that as my week number. Pretty cool so far. Point and click, haven't had to type anything, but renaming the columns. And now this file path, I don't need this. So I'm just going to click, right click, and remove it. And now I'm good. So I'm going to save this just to make sure nothing happens. And I'll just call it. And now what I'm going to do is create an aggregate, because I know that now I need to sum up my sales volume and value by the week and the type. So again, we click on our plus and we're going to add an aggregate. So if you do a lot of pivot tables in Excel, similar concept, you've got your fields that you're going to group by, and then you're going to do some sort of aggregation. So the fields that we want to group by are going to be our week and our type. And then the fields we want to aggregate are going to be our value and our volume. Oops, let me grab that. And now this is doing exactly what I want. I want to sum these. If I wanted to do a different function, I can just open up this menu here, and I'm going to have these options of how I want to aggregate my data. Now my personal preference here is to rename this. So again, just double click and just put week in front of it. And we'll put week in front of this. And now I have my weekly volume and value. Now, a couple of other things that I like to do in prep is actually have intelligent names for my steps. So I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this input. And I can also add a description here. So I can say union files from Excel. And what I like to do this for is I share my flows with some other people. And so this gives them a sense of the method behind my madness. So for this, I'm going to put create week, merge columns. You can put whatever you want in here, you know, make it something that if you were to win $1 gazillion and not go back to work ever again, that someone would be able to understand what you're doing. And so we'll just do this as week aggregate. And we'll do some. And now we've got our weekly sales. Weekly and volume. Okay, so far so good. We've got that part done. And now the next thing we need to do is add in our profit to find weeks where our value and volume exceeded the min profit for value and volume. All right, so we've used up our week files, but I've also got this thing called budget down here. So let's drag that out and see what we've got in this. All right, so it's not picking up any field names. It's got some weird stuff going on over here. So let's take a look and see what's going on with this. Okay, so it looks like there's some data in here that I want, but it's not really in a format that is looking like it's going to be easy for me to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this. And I'm just going to highlight it and delete it. And I'm going to try the data interpreter. So much like desktop, we have the data interpreter that can help make sense of what we may have. And when I do that, now it's picking up two different ranges. So I'm going to grab this first one and let's drag this out here. And let's take a look and see what we got here. Already I can see here this is making sense, right? We've got a week, a type, and then this looks like it's our profit. So I'm going to rename this. We'll call this our profit. And now we can take a look at it. Okay, so we know up here we created our week as a week number. Down here, our week looks like we can extract that number from here. And then we've got our type, and the rest of it looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do here is, again, we're going to click on this, and I'm going to click on the three dots, and we're going to go to our clean. Now, I don't think that anything here is going to do it for me because it's all numbers, so I can't do it like I did before. But what I can do is I can split it. So similar to desktop, you have the ability to split. So I'm going to do a custom split. Looks like I've got an underscore as my delimiter. So we'll do an underscore. And I'm going to split it off the last field. And now I have my week number. So I can get rid of this, right click and remove. And I can call this profit week. And we'll just change that to a whole number to match how we had it in our actual values. So let's name this show clean. And we're creating our week. And now what we're going to do is join our profit data to our weekly aggregated data. So I'm going to click and hold down on this step, and I'm going to drag it up to my weekly final here. And you can see when I hover over that, there's a little thing called, there are two boxes that pop up. One that says join and one that says union. In this example, we want to join it. And you can see, if you can see it, the orange, there is a little bit of a shaded orange box behind join. When you have that, you can release your mouse and it's going to create a join step for you. And now we've got the join panel, and I'm just going to drag this up a little bit because one of the things that I absolutely love about Prep is the join panel, because it's really helpful to understand when you do different join types, what happens with your data. I think it's so much easier to see it here visually than it is when you're writing SQL. You know, you can get a sense of what your row counts difference are, but here you can actually see where you may have mismatched values. Now, for the example that we're looking at right now, we don't have any. You know, initially it's just going to join on type. So, you know, it automatically detected that type was in both of my data sources, so it's going to set a join. Now, for us, that's good, but we do want to add a couple of more joins. So I'm going to click the plus symbol here, and we're going to join on week. So our week is going to equal our profit week. And then the other thing we need to know is where our value and volume are higher than the profit. So we're going to add another join type, and we're going to say where our weekly sales volume is greater than our profit min sales value. I think I said volume there, I meant value. And then we'll do the same for volume. Because for this, we're looking for where it's both. The instructions, if we flip back over to prep, is going to be where they're both higher. Okay. And now what we're going to see is that mismatch value. So now what you can see is we've got some things in red. So it's going to be in one, but not in the other. And what you can do is click on this, and it's just going to show you where your mismatched values are. Now for this, we know that we're going to have some that don't match. You know, we're doing an inner join here. So we're going to have some that don't match, and we're okay with that because of the criteria that we set. But if this was something that you were building from scratch and you were like, well, I should have values for this in this data source, you can come in here and see where those mismatches are and then research why they may not be in there. It narrows the scope of what you may have to look at when you're trying to understand, you know, what's going on with your data in your join types and what may be falling out. So I would encourage you, you know, if you're a heavy SQL user, just to come in here and even just use prep to kind of help you build some of that complex SQL and really understand what's visually happening with your data. So we're good with these join types because it matched what we needed to do. And now I'm just going to add a clean step. And we're going to just clean this up a little bit. So we're going to get rid of our profit week. We don't need that value because we're going to use our week field here. I prefer to kind of put things in order here. So we're going to do week, and then we're going to do type. And we can get rid of type here. And we've got, this is our volume, and that's our value. So now what we've got is we have 6 rows. And so let's just jump back over and look at what we're supposed to have. And down here, I think I looked at the wrong one, not reached. Here's where we've exceeded. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got one liquid that was week 1. And if I jump back over here, if we did it right and we click on liquid, we've got week 1. So we've been able to do steps 1 and 2. So I am going to call this profit. Final tidy. And our profit is done. And now one of the steps that we needed to do was add an output for this. So I'm just going to add the plus symbol and I'm going to output it. And here in your output options, you've got options to either save it to a file or publish it as a data source. We're going to save this as a file. What's coming soon that I hear is right back to a database, which will be fantastic. So save to a file, and then we're just going to browse out. And we can save this wherever we want, and we'll just call it week 8 profit and accept. And then I can just change this. Now the output types that you have are hyper, TDE, or CSV. I'm just going to pick CSV for this, and then we can run that and export that out. So we'll just save. And now the next step that we need to do is we need to add in our budget to find where we're missing either the value or the volume, miss the budget. Okay, so we've used our weeks, we've used this first range, so our logical guess is this is going to have our budget numbers. So let's drag this out. And it looks like it does. And now, again, our data is in a totally different format than our profit. We can see here. So let's just shrink this down a little bit. Another great thing is in the newer versions, originally you couldn't kind of move these around. You can move things in prep. So if we wanted to move this down, you just click and drag that down. It's great for organizing some complex flows. May not seem like a cool feature right now, but when you start to build out some things that have a lot of steps, it's really helpful. And you can also color code things. If you click on it and right click, you could change the color, which again can be helpful depending upon how complex your flow may be. Or if you're just prefer to have things customized the way you want it with color. So we'll add a clean step here. And this one looks like it might be a little bit more complicated. So let's get rid of that. And let's come back over here and let's see what we've got. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna have to clean our type. And this looks like we can do it with the clean steps. We don't need to do any splitting on this. So if we come here to clean, let's remove our numbers because we don't need those. And we can clean and remove our punctuation. Now, if you're interested in what this is doing, you can open these up and edit it, and you can see it's doing a regex replace here. So you could write regex, but why would you if you can just point and click? Okay, and now we've got our value and our volume, and what's interesting here is these are totally different, right? So we've got our, looks like our week number ranges here, and then we've got our value and volume here. So we're gonna get into a pivot, and a pivot is really where we're gonna reshape our data. So when I click on the plus symbol here, I'm gonna add a pivot. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna allow us to move columns to rows or rows to columns. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna move these, my week ranges, into one column. So we're gonna keep it as columns to rows. I'm gonna drag, I'm gonna multi-select the fields that I wanna move, and I'm gonna just drag them into our pivoted fields. So now you can see we've got, it created 2 new fields for us, pivot names and pivot values. So here's our weeks 1 to 2, and those are what those are for each value and volume. Now, when we were up here in our profit, we had nice little columns that had our value in one column and our volume in one column and our value in another column. So we don't have that here, but we have them in our rows. So immediately after this pivot, I'm gonna add another pivot. So this is a little, you know, not as straightforward, but it's reshaping and then reshaping again. But again, we're pointing and clicking. We don't have to type anything. We don't have to write any code. So we're going to add another pivot. And this time we're going to change this from columns to rows to columns. And what we're going to pick here is, what do we want to be our header? In our column header, we actually want that to be our measure. So we're going to grab measure and put that over here. And now we need to figure out, what do we want to populate in those columns? And we want that to be our pivot 1 values. So if we grab that and drag that down here to what we're going to aggregate for that, and sum is fine for what we're doing because it's, you know, at our record level, so we're good with that. Now, when I click and add a clean step, you're going to see that it looks a little more similar to what we had up here. So that was a little complicated. If anyone has any questions on that, feel free to put them in the QA, and we can get back to that when we're finished with this. So now the next thing we're going to do is we need to figure out how we're going to join this on week. So we've got our week ranges here, and what we can do is we can split these. So we're going to click on this. Let's try the automatic split and see what happens. Perfect. It split that on our hyphen. So we can come in here and we can call this budget week start. And this is going to be budget week end. Now we don't need our field over here anymore. We can get rid of that. And we're looking pretty good. So we've got our week start and end, we've got our volumes, we've got our types. All right, so now what we need to do is, if we jump back over to our instructions, we need to add our budget in to find weeks where the value or the volume missed the budget. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our here, what I'm gonna personally do is just add another clean step here, and I'm gonna drag this down. You could join right to that one, but sometimes when I'm building out a flow that's a little bigger, I kind of like to have that a little bit closer to my step. And what I'm going to do is actually join these two together. And now we've got our join. So again, we want to join on our type. We want to do an inner join here because we're only looking for what matches the criteria that we're setting for both. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look to see where our week is greater than or equal to the start of our budget week, and where our week is less than or equal to the end. So what this is going to do is, because we had in our budget, you know, weeks 1 to 2, and then we have 3 to 5 and 6 to 8, it's going to say, is my week number within that range? And then the other thing we need to do is we need to find where our value or volume are missing the budget. So we'll add another plus step, and we're going to start with value, and we're going to say where a value is less than the budget value. And again, obviously we're going to have some mismatches because of the joins that we're doing. And now if we add a step here, what we're going to see is, let's just clean this up. We're going to get rid of our budget week start and end. And we can get rid of our second type. And let's just move these together. Now I don't really need my volume here, right? Because we haven't looked at our volume. So let's just get rid of this. Because what we're really looking at here is just our value. So we're going to multi-select those and remove them. And now we can see our budget value. So if we click on week 6 here, we can see that our budget value is definitely, our sales was below our budget value. So we're looking good here. Now we're going to repeat the same thing for our volume. So again, we're going to just drag these together. So we're going to drag it up. We're going to join them. We're going to create another join. So our week again is going to be greater than or equal to our start. And our week is going to be less than or equal to our end. And this time we're going to look at our volume. So our volume is going to be less than our budget volume. And we can add a clean step. And again, we can get rid of those fields that we don't need. Remove these. You can see only liquid showed up in our volumes. And get rid of our values. And we don't need type block. And we can remove those. And now we've got these. And what we can also do is output those. So now we've answered the questions that we needed to answer for this. So I'm gonna stop talking for a little bit and let's see, do we have any questions in the QA or the chat? And let's see what we've got.
Yeah, Kate, I think there's a question on if these flows could be automated so
Yes.
that dashboards are updated, or do you need to execute it manually?
Yep, so you can't, if you have Prep Conductor on your server, you could use Prep Conductor. If you don't, there is a way to do some automation with a JSON file for your credentials in Windows Task Scheduler. And there's some great blog posts on how to do that. I think there's someone I can't think of off the top of my head that has a great blog out there. And I can find that and we can send that out. Or if you just Google it, you'll see that there are instructions on how to do that. So you do have 2 options for automation.
Awesome. I think I'll add it to the Google chat. There's also one on from Anmesh saying that he liked the use case and just wanted to check if you're able to join different data sources.
Yeah, absolutely. So I use Oracle in CSV a lot, or Oracle in Excel a lot, or Oracle, like I mentioned earlier, I use one that has Teradata, Oracle, and a CSV file. So you can definitely join different data sets, data sources together. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And also, just to add on to that, I think 2 versions back, we allowed you to join published data sources.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think there's one more, which we'll cover now and then maybe get to the rest after we cover this so that you can continue is, someone's posted saying that he's relatively new to Tableau. Raghvendra is relatively new to Tableau, and his clients complain that sometimes Tableau reports have a performance issue. So could Prep help with that?
Absolutely. So I think, you know, one of the great things about Prep is it makes it a lot easier to do your aggregations and your cleaning and, you know, maybe some of those more complicated calculations that you're doing in desktop, you can do upstream of that. So I always try and have any data source that I'm using in desktop be as kind of nimble and aggregated as I can and do all of that work upstream and then bring it into desktop. So if you are having some performance issues, you know, it may be worth, you know, doing a performance recording, but then also looking at, you know, what are you trying to do in that data source? Are you doing cross database joins in your data source? Are you doing a lot of unioning and a lot of joins? If you are, you know, see how you can move that out of desktop and put it into Prep and then generate that data source.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, I think we have a stream of more questions coming up, but I think I'll let you continue and we will go back to the question answer section.
Yeah, I think, you know, at this point, I'm kind of done with walking through the flow. We've kind of answered everything on that. So,
okay,
you know, Tanu, if you want to take over and go through the rest of it, or if you want to open it up to more questions, I'll defer to how you think you want to go from here.
Okay, sure. So I just have a small part to discuss. It's about 5 more minutes, and then I think keep your questions going and we'll keep posting the links on the chat. So awesome. We'll go to the question. I'm really excited. I think you've done a great session because I love it when there are more questions coming up on this. So thank you so much, Kate.
All right, so I'll stop sharing and hand it back over.
Perfect. So I'll share my screen, and again, in case someone can't see it, do keep me posted. You should be able to see it now. Yeah, you should be able to see the slideshow now.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Okay, so I just wanted to wrap up with a few things to just keep you engaged, and we will be coming up to your questions, so don't worry about posting them on the chat. Go ahead. And I do really like how you explain things, Kate. And I agree, I love the joining, and my second favorite is the pivoting step. So just a few things. Prep is a growing community, and we are looking for people to join and contribute and, like Kate, get involved in the prep data preparation community. So just 2 links, one which will take you to a survey in case you have some questions which you want us to address after this call, after you started using Prep. This will probably be a good opportunity. So again, I think we're going to put these 2 links on the chat, and just a bit of a disclaimer, I do have a fair number of links that are going to come towards you. So I think Caroline's helped us post it, so thank you, Caroline. The second one is basically where you'll be able to keep up to date with all the events that are happening in the Tableau Prep. So Kate had presented at a previous virtual user group, so all those kind of things you can stay up to date with it. And the first one's more for us to gauge interest. So the links on the group, this one, so go ahead, both of them are there. So go ahead and fill that in. Along with that, Kate did go through the prepping data. It's really, really good to help you upskill yourself. And I think what I love about it is that it's not just Tableau Prep specific. There's a lot of like new things they introduce to you. So I've learned things like scaffolding, and right now there's a challenge on on this algorithmic logic. So it's really, really good to kind of help you upskill. And I've been trying to keep up with the challenges, and I know Kate's been really active with it. So again, also on the chat, so go ahead and follow that. And the final one is, if we are doing a hands-on session, virtual hands-on session on Tuesday, the 24th. So if you'd like to follow along, it will be relatively more basic. So if you have teammates who are interested, it will just be a more step-by-step guide to Tableau Prep. So you can again use this QR code, use this link. It's also going to be put onto the chat right now, and you can register yourself for this webinar. It is on Singapore time, so I hope it's not too late for those who have joined us from other time zones. There will be a recorded version of this available. And with that, I'm done. Go ahead and ask your questions. And I think for the ones we already have, we can probably just start addressing them. So I think, Kate, I'll just go through some questions that I see on this chat box. One of them is from Josh. He's said, Josh's question, oh, you've already responded. But maybe we'll put it out to the rest of the group. Josh's question for everyone who's on the call is that if one table contains only the first name or the last name, how could I join it to another table which contains the full name?
Yeah, and I think, obviously depending upon the data, but just an initial way that you could do it is you could parse out the full name and match that way. If you had one data source had first name, last name, and the other data source had the full name, you could concatenate the first and last to match the way that it is in the second one. Or if you have it the other way, you could parse the full name and then match it back to the other one based off of which name field you're going to filter off of. So depending upon how you have the delineator, you could do a split, try the automatic split, see if it picks it up, or you could do a custom split.
Perfect. So hopefully, Josh, that answers your question. Do post it here. Then I think Abhay had a question on if the flow breaks during runtime, how can it be monitored? So I can probably answer that. So with the same Prep Conductor, I'll again post a link of Prep Conductor onto the chat. That will help you schedule your flows, as well as if it will provide you any error messaging in case it doesn't work. So let me just put that onto the chat.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, that if you don't have Conductor and you've got some error messages, I definitely Google, or go out to the Prep forum because there are, some helpful tips out there. I know Jonathan Drumming and Joshua Milligan have put just some fantastic information out there on some of the errors and getting around them. And if you don't see it, I would open a support ticket. The Prep team is absolutely amazing. The support they give is just really fantastic. So if you are running into some sort of error like that outside of Conductor, definitely check into those two resources.
Perfect. And I think we have one more from, oh great, thanks Abhay, like that answer, so thank you. And I think there's one more from Anja. Is Prep part of any desktop version, or do I need to download it separately? So it is a separate downloadable product. It is part of the creator, and maybe I can send you the link for downloading that as well. Okay, so I think those are the questions that we had until now. Go ahead for anyone else who has more questions. Do post it on the Q&A box. We will be monitoring it.
Hi, Kate. This is Sagar here. I have a question for you. And the question is for someone who is just starting for Tableau Prep. So what will be your advice for them?
So I would definitely do prepping data week 26 from 2019 as the first thing I did. To me, that's a great way to start with prep. It's really straightforward and kind of introductory. The other thing I would do is experiment, right? I'm a big believer in getting in and just testing stuff out and seeing what it does. I'd also watch, there's some great videos on the Tableau website that will walk you through it. And there are some data that you can download and follow along with those. And then out on YouTube, like the Prepping Data team, Jenny Martin's doing video solutions every week. So, you know, take a look at that. Join in, you know, it's hashtag Prepping Data on Twitter. And you'll also see different approaches that people are doing. So it's really, I think the best way to start is seeing what's out there for you to learn from other people. And then once you start doing that, you know, look at the forums, ask questions, read all of the great information that's out there. I think there's a lot of resources. And if you get stuck, feel free to reach out to anyone on Twitter with the hashtag Prepping Data. You know, everyone who's doing these challenges is really helpful and more than willing to kind of help you figure out what you're trying to do. So that would be my advice.
Perfect. Thank you.
Kate, just to clarify, it was week 26, right?
I think it was week 26 from 2019.
Awesome.
Double check.
Awesome. Perfect. Caroline's added that to the
week 26.
Chat box.
Perfect. Tanu, you have any advice for the people who are starting with Tableau?
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely have some getting started videos on our webpage and some tutorials that you can start with. But like Kate said, I think the place where I really learned from after learning just where things were from the getting started tutorials is this prepping data. Essentially, because not only does it take you through challenges, but what it gets you to do is to get to know concepts that you would need. So things like how can I do a join, or what Kate just did, which is you filter without actually using a filter, where you look at the lower than, you look at a budget lower than, what was lower than target, and those kind of things. So I feel like I would definitely recommend the tutorials to get to know the UI. Do join the virtual test drive, get to know the UI, get comfortable with the UI because it is a new software ultimately. But then when you really want to sharpen your skills, I would say that do go ahead and start the prepping data challenges. Those are really, really helpful.
Okay, I think we can take one just last question we have. The question is that once we are done with preparing a data in Tableau Prep, how we can go ahead connect that with Tableau Desktop. Maybe Tanu, you want to take it?
Sure. So once you're done with your prep flows, there's this output option. You can choose to output it either as a CSV, or you can choose to output it as a hyper file, which is a Tableau recognized file which stays local in your computer. What's probably more scalable is if you go ahead and choose to output it as a published data source, which is a data source that you can connect to from Tableau. And then again, like we discussed, you can go ahead and use Prep Conductor to schedule it, to have it automated and refresh in the same way. So we will, again, I don't have that open, but we do have, you can just directly output it. And like Kate mentioned, we will have output to database out soon.
Perfect. I think with that, thanks a lot, Kate and Tanu. I think it was a great session. And I think it gives a challenge for everyone to go ahead and learn something new. So I hope people will go ahead and learn Tableau Prep and share with us some of the examples which has helped them to learn about Prep. So I hope you guys stay safe and we'll catch up soon in the next session. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
everyone. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. Take care.